The sun hadn't fully risen yet, but outside the village in the open garbage field, a thin, frail man wearing a torn shirt and carrying an old sack was bending down, searching for something. His name was Salim, the same man the villagers used to call good-for-nothing. Children laughed and pointed. "Look, the junk man is here." He never said anything, just quietly walked away. There was no stove burning in his hut, no one to talk to. His wife had left years ago, taking the children with her to her parents' house. Since then, Salim lived alone in that little hut. That day, too, he picked a new corner of the dump. As he turned the soil with a stick, his eyes suddenly caught something strange. A sack, almost new, clean, no mud, no stains, thick ropes tied tightly around the top. "Who could have thrown this?" he murmured. But when he tried to pull it, the weight felt odd, as if something solid was inside. Maybe clothes, he thought. Looking around to make sure no one was watching, he slowly dragged the sack to one side where the smoke and haze could hide him. He untied the rope. The sack opened, and his breath stopped. Inside were bundles wrapped in plastic. With trembling hands, he opened one. Stacks of fresh 500 rupee notes. His eyes widened, dazed by the shine. He dropped to his knees, his fingers trembling as they touched the notes. "Is this real?" he whispered to himself. His heart was pounding, his hands shaking. He looked around again. No one in sight. After a few moments, he took a deep breath and made his decision. He tied the sack again, lifted it onto his back, and started walking toward his hut. Every sound on the road felt suspicious. The barking of dogs, the chatter of people, everything made his heart skip. As soon as he reached home, he shut the door from the inside. He placed the sack in the corner, covered it with a mat. His heart was thumping so loud it felt like it would burst out of his chest. He kept peeking through the cracks in the door. Was someone following him? When he was finally sure no one was around, he sat near the sack. His hands were trembling, but mustering courage, he untied the rope again. The moment the sack opened, the sparkle blinded his eyes. Bundles and bundles of crisp new notes. Salim took one bundle and began to count. His lips went dry as he counted. Just one bundle, 1 lakh rupees. He guessed there must be at least 30 to 40 crores. The thought made his head spin. No ordinary man could have left this, he muttered. A wave of fear ran through him. What if it belongs to some big man, a politician, a gangster? What if they start searching for it? Sweat drenched his body. He quickly put the bundles back, tied the sack again, and sat down on the dirt floor, holding his head in his hands. In his heart there was joy. Finally, his years of poverty might end. He could get treatment, build a new house, live a life with dignity. But deep inside, fear was eating him alive. What if someone found out? What if people called him a thief? The police might catch him, or the real owner might show up. He stayed awake the whole night. He consoled himself, saying, "If tomorrow I just take out one bundle and get treatment, who will ever know?" The doctor, for the first time, made him sit with respect, gave him medicine, and said the treatment is possible. After years, a real smile appeared on Salim's face. He understood this wealth is his test, not a blessing. The next day became a new morning for Salim. After years, he looked at himself carefully in the mirror. The face was weak, but now there was a spark of hope in his eyes. He thought, if I act wisely, I can change everything. First, he repaired his hut, took out some money from the sack, called some laborers and got the roof replaced. Within a few days, the bad smell and dampness of the house started to fade away. The people in the neighborhood were surprised. Hey, how did this scrap collector suddenly change like this? A few weeks later, he took the next step. On the main road of the village, he opened a small grocery shop. On the first day, he just kept lentils, rice, and salt. sat there himself at the counter, smiled, and greeted everyone who came in. At first people hesitated, but slowly they started coming. The shop began to run well. Sacks of flour, cans of oil, spices, soap. Everything started selling. During all that time, Salim stayed very cautious. The sudden wealth he had found was nothing less than a mystery, but he never showed it off. He knew if even a little bit of glitter appeared, people would start bombarding him with questions. So, from the outside, he still looked like that same simple shopkeeper who smiled and said, "What do you need, brother?" to every customer. But deep inside, he knew that in his old sack lay enough wealth to change not just his life, but many others too. Sometimes the old women from the neighborhood would say, "Salim Bhaiya, you've changed so much." He would just smile, but inside a sweet pride would rise. After all, who doesn't feel good when the world notices their change? Slowly, he expanded his business. A few months later, he took out a bit more money from that sack and started a small warehouse, bought an old truck for transporting goods, and now he wasn't just a seller, he'd become a supplier. In the village, people now started calling him Salim Lal, as if he were some big businessman. But amid all this progress, a fear still lived inside him. At night, when he sat beside that sack, he would think, what if someday this secret comes out? What if the real owner appears? And the very next moment he would comfort himself, "No, this is the reward of my fate. I have endured years of helplessness. This is the fruit of my patience. I have taken no one's right." With time, Salim himself had changed. The man who once walked with his head down in crowds now walked straight, full of confidence. There was no hesitation in his voice anymore, only calm steadiness. During the day, he managed the shop. In the evening, he looked after the warehouse. And at night, he sat beside the sack, planning for the next day. He had now gone far beyond the old Salim he once was, but that too was true. Even amid success, an emptiness still echoed inside him. One evening, when he returned tired after closing the shop, two faces were standing at the door. Familiar faces, but ones that had gone far away. His wife Anita and both children. The children were grown up now, but on their faces were shadows of hesitation and shame. Anita's eyes were filled with tears. "Salim," she said softly, "we made a mistake. Circumstances forced us. Leaving you was not right." Salim's feet felt as if they had sunk into the ground. For a moment time stood still. He remembered those days when illness had broken him. There was nothing to eat at home, and Anita had said, "I can't bear this anymore," and had left with the children. That was the night when everything in Salim's life had fallen apart, and now that same Anita was standing at his door. The children stepped forward and said, "Baba, please forgive us. We want to stay with you." Now Salim's heart trembled. On one side, he was a father who longed to hug his children. On the other side, he was that same broken man who had been left behind. Was their return truly out of love, or had the shine of wealth drawn them back? The question pierced him deep inside. He said in a cold voice, "When I was empty-handed, you all left. Now that I have something, you've come back. Is this love or greed?" Tears streamed from Anita's eyes. "No, Salim, we truly regret it now. The children need your shadow." Salim lowered his gaze. Inside there was a storm like a volcano. He knew that sometimes forgiving is easy, but forgetting is not. Finally he said, "The children are mine, and no one can take away their rights. I will take care of their studies, their future. But Anita, the wall that has been built between us, it will never fall again." Anita remained silent. There was relief in the children's eyes. At least their father was once again a part of their lives. But the old wound in Salim's heart had opened once more. The world outside said that Selim Lal was now a successful man, but inside, he was still the same Selim who lived swinging between his old sack and the space between his past and present. That night Selim couldn't sleep for a long time. He sat beside the sack as if talking to an old friend. This wealth is bringing everything back. Respect, name, a peaceful life. But will it bring back peace of mind too? The question floated in the air, and in response there was only the silence of the walls. A few weeks passed. Salim's shop had now turned into a small empire. Goods moved out from the warehouse. Trucks came and went, and the villagers now called him Salim Bai with respect. In the outer world, everything was fine, but inside there was a weight that sat on his chest every night. He looked at that sack and consoled himself. Maybe some thief had thrown it away, or maybe fate had shown mercy on me. But it seemed fate too wanted to test his patience. One evening he was sitting in the courtyard sipping tea. Inside, the TV was on with the usual political nonsense, which he no longer paid attention to. But suddenly the anchor's voice rose sharply. Breaking news. There was a theft at the MLA's house. Salim's heart skipped a beat. The anchor was saying that a thief had stolen money from the MLA's house. When the police chased him, he had hidden the money somewhere, which still hasn't been found. The police are continuously trying to locate him. Salim's hands trembled. A flash of lightning struck his mind. The sack, that same sack. The anchor kept speaking. Hundreds of crores are still missing. The smaller bundles may never be found, but the investigation continues. That sentence kept echoing in his ears. The smaller bundles may never be found. It meant that maybe his sack was still safe. A cold wave ran through his veins. What if someone ever finds out? What if the police come to my door? That night he kept tossing and turning. Even at the shop the next morning, his mind was distracted. Customers kept talking and he gave absent-minded replies. His mind was only doing calculations. If I keep it hidden, I'll survive. But if the secret is exposed, everything will be over. That evening, when he returned home, he opened the sack again. The note still shone the same way, but now that shine seemed terrifying. It felt as if those notes had eyes that were staring straight at him. Salim put the bundles back and said to himself, "This wealth can either save me or destroy me." From that day he made a vow, no more haste. He would take out a little money at a time, spend it slowly, so that no one would suspect. But inside his heart, a new wound had already formed. Every time he counted the notes, his hands trembled. Still, life went on. During this time, one day, a man from a nearby village came to buy goods. With him was his sister, Saloni, simple and quiet. 2 years ago, she had lost her husband to illness, and now she was helping her brother with work. When Salim talked to her for the first time, he felt a strange peace. In Saloni's words, there was no show-off, no hidden meaning. She looked at Salim not as a businessman, but as a human being. Slowly, she began visiting the shop, sometimes with her brother, sometimes alone. Every time, there was a natural politeness in her tone that washed away the tiredness of Salim's day. One day, Saloni smiled and said, "You work very hard, Salimji." Everyone in the village respects you. Salim just smiled at that moment, but inside him an unknown feeling awakened. Maybe money can make a man safe, but someone's affection is what keeps him alive. When Saloni said with a gentle smile, "You are a man of great respect," something melted inside Salim. After so many years, someone had given him respect, and that too a beautiful woman. It was like a coolness settled in his chest. Slowly, a soft relationship began to grow between them. Saloni didn't just listen, she understood. When she learned about Salim's past, she didn't express pity. Instead, she looked into his eyes and said, "What's gone is just a test of time. What matters now is that you move forward." Those words lit a new lamp inside Salim's heart. A few months later, he made a decision. He would marry Saloni. As soon as this news spread in the village, people started talking in different ways. Some taunted, "The junk collector will now bring a new wife." And some laughed, saying, "At least, now this poor man's life finally has some light." Salim did not respond to anything. He knew that this marriage was not just about having a partner, but about giving himself a new life. The wedding was very simple. No band, no crowd of guests, just 2 witnesses, a few flowers, and the beginning of 2 hearts' new journey. After Saloni came, it was as if Salim's house began to breathe again. When Salim returned from his shop, tired and worn out, Saloni would open the door with a smile. That smile was neither expensive nor artificial. These small little things gave Salim a peace that no amount of wealth could buy. Still, when night deepened and Saloni fell asleep, Salim's mind would go back to that same sack. That sack would not let him rest. Every time the shine of those notes reminded him, this wealth was not pure. He thought, if this money was connected to a crime, how could it ever bring me peace? This very thought slowly led him toward a big decision. Salim made up his mind. Now this money would not belong to him alone. It would be used for others. He remembered very well how poverty can strip away a person's dignity. Those taunts, that neglect, those days when the clinic worker looked down on him with contempt. All of that still lived in his memories, and then one morning he took the first step. The old mosque in the village leaked during the rain. Worshippers often had to go inside carrying umbrellas. Salim quietly started donating money. When the amount became sufficient, he put his name forward. The whole village was startled. The same Salim who used to pick garbage, where did he get so much money? Some mocked him, some doubted him, saying maybe he won it in gambling. But as the mosque's walls began to rise, Salim's intentions became clearer. People saw that he was helping sincerely, not for show. Gradually, the criticism stopped, and the villagers began to address him respectfully as Salim Mian. The man whom society once rejected had now become its support. Salim took another big step in his life. This time he decided to invest not with money, but with his heart. He announced, "I will open a school in the village where every poor child can study without fees." At first, people thought it was just an emotional statement. But when the first brick of the Neem Foundation was laid, everyone understood. Salim was no longer just a businessman. He had become the village's leader. Saloni also stood by his side, shoulder to shoulder. A few young teachers agreed to teach for a small salary. Some called it a miracle. Others prayed, "May God keep such people safe." Salim invested the remaining money into more businesses, and slowly, he truly became a very wealthy man. Now, he no longer needed that sack. His earnings were so great that he now ran businesses worth billions. Yet he always thanked Allah and continued helping the poor. He built a beautiful bungalow and a hotel in London for his first wife and children. His first wife, too, began living happily with her kids. If Salim's story makes you think about the true struggle between truth, repentance, and kindness, then give a like. Tell us in the comments, if you were in Salim's place, what would you have done? Can good deeds done with bad money ever be considered right? Your opinion means a lot to us. And yes, to watch more such heart-touching stories, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so that the next story reaches your mobile screen directly.